Yes, especially, when I was really into, going to the gym and doing all of the, the aerobics and all the things that you do in a group class. And afterwards, when they would have a stretch and then lay back and say, okay, now I want you to breathe and think about, whatever. I was just like, come on, I just want to get out of here and take a shower.
Do you want to be part of the podcast? Go to shanesbraindomain.com and click on the Aphantasia section. There you will find a question or prompt and an opportunity to contribute your thoughts and experiences. Simply record and submit your response, and you could be featured on a future episode. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain. And today I'm joined by my co-host for this episode, Cole Williams. Say hi, Cole.
Hello.
All right. And today we are talking with the one and only Jan Nichols.
Hello.
Hi, Jan. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. We're excited to have you. To start out here, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for a living?
Okay. Well, I am a regional sales manager for a company that does environmental work as far as manufacturing things for the environment. I'm doing construction, and I am a mom. My kids are mostly grown. I've got one still at home that's 20, and I'm single, and I live in San Diego.
All right. San Diego, huh? We love San Diego, don't we, Cole?
Yeah, we do. It's a great place.
It is. It's a nice place to live. Yes.
What else do you like to do for fun or your hobbies? What are your interests?
Oh, gosh. I like to cook with my daughter. I love my dog. We do lots of walking. I garden. I read a lot. I enjoy going to concerts.
All right. What kind of music do you like?
I go to the symphony a lot. So I like classical music. I like country music. I like jazz. I like, pop. I like everything. I enjoy music.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the Apple Graph. If you would like to view the Apple Graph to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to view the Apple Graph for whatever reason, it is a graph divided into 6 sections. In the number 6 section, there is a very detailed image of a red apple. In the number 5 section, it is the same image but with less detail. Number 4 is still in color but has less detail and more basic shapes instead of detailed hues and gradients. Number 3 is the less detailed apple but in gray tones without the color. Number 2 is a simple outline of the apple. And number 1 is blank, indicating no visualization whatsoever. This is called aphantasia.
The first thing we would like you to do is imagine a red apple in your mind.
Okay, I am going to attempt to visualize a red apple in my mind.
Now I want you to go ahead and look at this graph we got here, and you just tell us on that scale which one is the best representation of what you saw.
1.
All right, so we do indeed have aphantasia here. So can you tell us a little bit about when was the first time that you noticed something was different about the way you visualized or the way you experienced in your mind?
My first memory of being confused and concerned was when I was in grade school. I think I was in 2nd grade. And our teacher had us close our eyes, and we were directed to visualize a beautiful sunset. And she started calling, kids' names, and then they would go into detail about this beautiful sunset, the colors. Some of them were like over a mountain. Some of them were over an ocean, they said. And I have to tell you, that I sat there going, are these people just full of baloney? What in the world is going on? I did not understand. And I thought that they were just all kidding or making stuff up. And that was the last time that I thought about it for 40 years. That's the last time until I read an article and recognized myself. And then that's when I had the epiphany, the realization, the shock.
Yeah, I find it so interesting that you'll have these moments, and we've talked to other people that realize that, they have these moments where it's like, okay, that's a little strange that other people are, seeming to describe this a lot more vividly than I can. But, it often just kind of gets brushed to the side. Life is busy, whatnot. And then once it's finally like given a name, defined, people start to realize, holy cow, I am very different from everybody.
Absolutely. Through my life, I had worries. I mean, there was definitely specific worries about certain things that, of course, now understanding that I don't visualize caused me a lot of worry. I can tell you my biggest worry as my kids were young before, as they were like toddlers and in grade school, you would hear about a child being snatched or something terrible happening. And, they would, oh, he was wearing red shorts and black high tops and all this definite, he had a shirt on with XYZ on it. And I was just confounded and worried because I could never tell you what my kids were wearing. Ever. And I thought, if something happens, are the police going to get mad at me if my kids disappear and I cannot describe them? So I just thought it was something wrong with me, but I didn't have a name for it.
That is interesting. I've never heard it from that perspective before. So do you think in some ways that you are at a bit of a disadvantage because of aphantasia?
Absolutely. One of the biggest disadvantages for me is I am in sales. I've been in sales my whole life and I'm good at it, but I can't recognize people. I also have a very mid-level, perhaps facial blindness. Once I've seen you many, many times, like I work with you or you're my kid's boyfriend or girlfriend, and I see you often, I will be able to recognize you. But for example, whenever I am working, I usually have someone with me and they all know, whoever comes with me, they know I can't recognize people. So they'll whisper in my ear, oh, that's John with so-and-so company. That is certainly something that's been hard to deal with in my career. I'll tell you something that happened to me if you're interested. I was dating my husband for quite a while, but I was not living in San Diego at the time. So we were going back and forth from Texas to San Diego. And the very first time that he flew in to Love Field on Southwest, I was literally shaking in my boots that I would not be able to recognize him when he got off the plane. And I'm not kidding. And he didn't know that I wouldn't. I never had told him that I might not be able to recognize him. Honestly, the only way I recognized him was because of his shoes that he had on when I looked down. And then once I recognized the shoes, when I looked up, I then know it's my boyfriend.
Yeah, I'm curious to know. We should do some more research about the link between those two things. It would be interesting to know if face blindness is directly tied to aphantasia. So we're going to talk more about this later, but would you say your memory is not very good as well?
You know what? I've thought about that a whole lot. I have. And I know this might be a weird little thing, but I think now that I know that I have something like this, I am trying to do things to make me remember stuff. But absolutely. I have lost so much. It's like my brother and I went out to dinner and he was telling me about another time that we had been at that restaurant and I couldn't remember. And yeah, I could not remember. So what we did, what I said to him was I said, Jason, we're having such a good time. I really want to be able to remember this. And so we came up with an idea to help set that memory. And so we got some we each got a sambuca, which is, an after dinner drink. And we cheered and we said, okay, we're going to remember that we had this drink, and then we gave a cheer. And then he asked me like every day for like 4 or 5 days if I remembered it, and I did. But on the way home from work today, I was kind of not remembering it. I had to really fight hard to get that memory, but I did get it. I do have it. I just have to be extra cautious to set the memory and to set it with how my brain understands things. Does that make sense? And so I tasted that sambuca. I smelled that sambuca. I felt the cheer, right? When my brother and I toasted. By doing things like that, I think it helps set the memory, because when other people I feel can visualize, that visualization becomes part of that memory chip, right? And I don't have that. So I just have to come up with other ways to do that.
So something we were wondering about is in our little pre-show that we did, you mentioned talking about how grief in aphantasia is like a two-edged sword. We were wondering if you could expound on that a little bit more.
I suffered a loss of one of my children years ago before I knew that I had aphantasia. So what happened to me was, of course, you're going through this incredible grief. And I remember that all my friends and my relatives, and, he was only 23, so it was just a huge event, right? There were so many people, so much was involved in it that it was just a madhouse. But these people were making this big board, a cork board, and they were making, a collage of his life, right, to have at the funeral. And they were taking all these pictures, and I was upset. I didn't want the pictures. I didn't want to see them. And so I just refused to look at the pictures. And then for 5 years, I was unable to look at a picture of my son, physically, mentally unable to view his photo. Because when I viewed his photo, the extreme grief was overwhelming, because I don't see him in my brain. I mean, I don't have that capability. So I'm not laying there crying, visualizing my son playing baseball, right? I can't see that. And so I really feel that not being able to visualize him and remember his life visually was really difficult, because it extended the grief period, I think. But on the other hand, I didn't have to have that PTSD of seeing his face. And that's why I mean it's a double-edged sword, right? So would I give anything in the world to be able to visualize my son? Yes, I would. Yes, I would. I would give my leg, my arm. I would literally give anything to be able to do that now, but not for years. Once I realized what it was that I couldn't visualize him, and that other people could visualize my son. I mean, my kids can visualize their brother. His wife can, his widow could visualize him, but I didn't get to. And that made me mad. That really upset me, and it still does.
Wow. That's really profound, and I'm not quite sure what to say about it.
There really isn't anything to say. It's just what you live with. And I don't know, Shane, I don't know how much, can you visualize people in your brain?
No.
And so maybe you understand
not at all.
what I'm talking about, because you want to be able to visualize your kid, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So you said that you didn't know about aphantasia at first. And so there's 5 years where you couldn't even look at a picture of your son. At what point did you find out about aphantasia and start putting that together? It seems like in the early part of it, aphantasia was kind of a blessing for you, because you couldn't handle seeing his photo.
That's why it's
right?
a double-edged sword, right? Yes.
Right. So at what point did you learn about aphantasia, and it kind of flipped the script where, like, oh man, I wish I could visualize him?
About 8 years ago, when I read an article and it started talking about it, was about 2015 or so, maybe. I was reading a magazine article, and it started talking about, I'm not even sure if it started talking about, if they called it aphantasia, or if it was just talking about the inability to visualize. And I read like 1% to 2% of the population had it. And that's when I sat there. I remember sitting in my room going, OMG, I can't tell you what went through my mind because everything I was so upset. I remember, I called my friends, my family. I asked them all the questions. Can you actually visualize? So you can actually see, you can actually close your eyes and you actually really see something. First of all, it was hard for me to believe that, right? It's really hard for me to believe that someone can actually see that apple or see that sunset or see their kid's face. And so that was hard for me to accept. And then, of course, with the acceptance comes the realizations of what in your life was affected by it and why things happened to me the way they did. So it's been a journey, I think. It's been a journey. So, one thing I've read, by listening to, seeing posts from other people who are not able to visualize, is I know a lot of people will say that, now they know why they don't like to read. But for me, I read a lot. But you know what else? I skip the descriptions of everything. And I realized that later on as I was thinking, I would just get so bored of listening to someone talk about what the room looked like or what the dress looked like. So I would just skip it. But anyways, I still like to read anyway. I don't know why I don't have to imagine visuals to read, but I don't.
Okay.
All right.
The next thing we'd like you to do is think of a chicken in your mind.
Sure.
Describe in as much detail as you can what is happening in your mind when you think of a chicken.
I'm thinking about eating an egg and what it tastes like. I'm thinking about the chicken farm that is down the street from where I work and how it makes the entire city smell horrible, like chicken manure. And I'm thinking about the noise that they make when they're walking through their chicken coops. So taste, smell, and hearing. I don't see them.
But did you experience the taste, smell, and hearing in your mind?
No, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. I mean, come on.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. I know what an egg tastes like, but am I actually tasting the egg in my mouth? No. I know what the hears like, but I'm not hearing sounds, but I know what it hears like. It's just no. No.
So if you don't have the visual, you don't have the hearing, you don't have the taste, why did your mind go to those things?
Because I do have the hearing, I do have the taste, and I do have the feeling. Because it's just, I know every day when I drive to work, I smell chicken manure in the air, right? And so I know it's a very strong sense. And so I'm remembering that sense. The noises that chickens make in the coop, it's very, very strong and noticeable. And so when you hear that over your life, you remember what it hears like. And of course, I've eaten 1 trillion eggs. So of course, I know what an egg tastes like and what it feels like in my mouth.
Okay, because it's interesting because the difference here is, I know what an egg tastes like, but when I imagine an egg, I actually taste it.
Yeah.
So my question is, you know what a chicken looks like too, though, right?
Yes.
But you didn't think about that at all? Did you think about what color the chicken is, where it's at, what it looks like? Or did you just go to the other senses directly?
I think I went to the other senses first, but I do know what a chicken looks like, but I'm not seeing the chicken. I know it's a fluffy thing with a head that bounces up and down and it's got chicken feet, but I don't see those things. I just know those things.
Right. So I'm just curious if your mind naturally wants to just fill in the details, like what kind of chicken is it? What color is it? Is there a background? Any of those kind of details?
Not even an inkling, not even this much. And that's an interesting thing. You brought something up that I had not thought about before, which is just another thing. You're right. I don't care because I can't. It doesn't do me any. It would just be a waste of my moments.
Right. Yeah, that was very interesting. How your mind just instantly went to all these other details, but not really about the chicken itself.
And it seemed to be very memory dependent, which is very interesting given what we said about memory earlier.
I think there's different types of memory, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You're a wonderful dancer, she said with a smile, as I shimmied and shuffled and boogied with style. Thank you, I stammered. I appreciate that, but I just need to know where the bathroom is at. All Mixed Up, a motley horde of funny poems, is available on shanesbraindomain.com and Amazon.
What about how you think, Shane? Because this is a question that I really wonder. And I've asked my kids how I think is I think in words only. How do you,
so you would say that you don't ever think in concepts?
I do think in concepts and words. That's
Right.
yes. I do think in big concepts. And you know what's funny is one of the things I've been very successful at is being able to see the big picture because I don't pay any attention to the little details. And so people always say, I think that's why I've been successful, because when I meet somebody and I'm trying to help them solve a problem with my product and what we do, you know, a construction company that's going to go fix their water pond or whatever it is, I'm looking at the big picture. It's just boom, boom, boom. And I can see it. And you know, when I'm with them, where other people, I think, get bogged down in details.
Okay.
I don't.
Yeah, it's similar for me. I would say concepts and words.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a third concept, a third words, and a third of just mysterious, I can't explain it type of
I'm going to
stuff.
say 100% you hit the nail on the head. And you know, my daughter, that's it. It's a third, and a third. 100%. I agree. And when my daughter, you know, because I pick her brain and want to know how she thinks. And she said she thinks in a mix of more pictures and words. So she's actually doing both things. And I said, is it like a movie? And she kind of said, kinda. So that kind of is interesting for how she sees. She's thinking apple, tasting apple, but then she gets to have a floating apple, right?
Yeah. So when you think about something, is there any difference depending on if your eyes are closed or your eyes are open?
No. My son says that he can visualize with his eyes open. And I think my daughter does too, both. But I don't, my thinking doesn't change with my eyes closed or open at all. No difference.
Right. So have you ever been in a setting where they say, okay, everybody close your eyes and imagine this or whatever? Did that ever confuse you before you knew about aphantasia? Like, why are we closing our eyes? What does that do? Because I had that experience.
Yes, especially, you know, when I was really into, you know, going to the gym and doing all of the, you know, the aerobics and all the things that you do in a group class. And afterwards, when they would have a stretch and then lay back and say, okay, now I want you to breathe and think about, you know, whatever. I was just like, come on, I just want to get out of here and take a shower.
Hearing you say that, and, you know, I've heard it before, and it always makes me just a little bit concerned about the direction of therapy. I'm a psychology major in college, and I'm really into the psychology side of all of this. Whenever therapy is brought up, you know, therapeutic approaches often involve visualization, you know, from simple cognitive techniques to meditation to hypnosis. A lot of it is dependent on visualization. And it almost feels like we're just missing this whole population of people with aphantasia.
You are. Because I've been in therapy. I've had my fair share of therapy, let me tell you. And therapy, before I knew I'd had aphantasia, I would sit there and just pretend. I would just pretend. Do you see the trees? Yes, I see the trees. You know, just
right.
And I had therapy afterwards in the last few years. And my therapist, I was very open with her. I said, you know, Fawn, I said, I do not visualize. So that's how I think. I can't visualize. And I had to explain to her what it was because she didn't know. And I was saying, you know, go look it up. And she must have, because from that day forward, we didn't do anything to do with visualizing. You should ask your patients.
Oh, yeah, I definitely plan to further in my career. So one of the things we've always been really interested in with aphantasia and visualizing in general is the different words we use to describe things that we think sometimes get kind of mixed together, muddled. We're not using the same words to describe the same things. So I'm going to share with you 4 phrases. The 4 phrases are picture it, imagine it, visualize it, and think of it. Are all of those 4 phrases interchangeable to you? Do they mean the same thing, or do they have different meanings?
They all have the same meaning. For me, it would be thinking about it. I would just think in words about it. So I would think, if someone told me to visualize something, before I knew I had aphantasia, I didn't know what the definition of that was. I didn't know what they were talking about. I just thought everyone saw how I saw. And so when I would visualize it and I'd close my eyes and I would be thinking about, visualize the trees. I would thinking about the wind and the smell of pine, but it was in words, all of it.
So no matter which one of those I say, your brain will do the same thing then.
Right, because I don't know what that is. I can imagine let's talk about imagination though. I think that's a little bit different because I imagine things in detail, but not visually. Imagine and think about it. Those are the two.
Mm-hmm. Those two stand out. The other two don't have much of a meaning at all.
Not anything. They don't have any meaning to me whatsoever. I just ignored it.
Okay. In general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
My eyelids.
Can you think of nothing if you want to?
No. I've thought about that too. No. I get really mad because, when they'll say, okay, empty your brain and start with your feet and work up and relax. Mm-hmm. I can empty my brain because there's always black, but I can't stop my words. Very hard for me to stop thinking. I don't think I have been successful really at it.
I'm starting to really get intrigued by the concept of thinking of nothing, because at this point, at first, we really thought it was mainly an aphantasia thing. But now we've talked to a good wealth of people, and it really seems like that ability, it almost feels random on who can do it, who can't, because we've had hyperphantasia people that have been able to accomplish it to a certain extent, aphantasia people who can't shut off their brains. It seems rather random and unpredictable.
I'll tell you to what extent I can't shut my brain off is like, let's just say that I wake up at 2:00 in the morning because I'm stressed out, right? Mm-hmm. And you know how you have all that self-talk when you wake up, or at least I do. I don't know what other people do. Maybe they see visualizations of themselves. But so what I've learned to do is I've learned to always have an audiobook ready. And so as soon as I wake up and I start not being able to look back to sleep, or because I start thinking these random, ridiculous thoughts, I just turn on my audiobook. And within 5 minutes, I'm sound asleep because I'm listening to something. So I'm concentrating on what I'm hearing. That works well.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about the mind audio. And again, we got 4 phrases for you.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me what these phrases mean to you, if anything. Okay. So we have inner voice, inner monologue, inner dialogue, and self-talk.
I do all of that. It's all part of the one thing. It's how my brain works. All those things are the same thing to me.
Okay. But you can't hear it.
I don't know what you mean by that, because if I heard it, I'd have schizophrenia, and that would be something that isn't good. I don't believe I hear myself talking right now, right? I'm talking, I hear it, and I hear it kind of when it's happening. How else am I being able to know what I'm saying if I'm not hearing it?
Does the inner dialogue, the self-talk, is it you? Is it your voice?
Yeah, it's me. It's me. It's only me. I'm not hearing anybody else.
Okay. And I'm with you. Like, I can't wrap my head around any of this stuff really, but I try. So when I ask people that question, can you hear it? And I'm not talking about, your physical ears. These people with, the mind's eye, the mind's ear, the mind's nose, you know what I mean? They have this internal way of experiencing these things. So I guess that's what I'm asking is, when you think your thoughts, or when your thoughts are manifesting themselves,
yes,
is there any level of quote unquote hearing it with your internal senses?
Yes, I think so. Because sometimes let's say that I have to have a difficult conversation with someone. And so I'm practicing in my head saying something. And I may actually say to myself, okay, you need to, tone that down a little bit, or, say it more calmly. So obviously I'm hearing something because I know it's not calm.
Right.
But I don't hear something like a singer, someone who can sing. Obviously, I don't know, maybe they have something a little bit more special, because I could sing a note and I think I sound great, but it's not good.
I'm right with you there.
So that's interesting. And that's why I tried to zoom in on that a little bit, because when you said that you can tell that it's you, that makes me think that you're hearing on some level. I wouldn't be able to identify that. My thoughts don't sound like me at all. They don't sound like anything. It's complete silence in every way. So even though I'm the one that's thinking them, it doesn't, I wouldn't be able to identify that it's me, if that makes any sense.
Yes, but it seems like there is a category of people who it's either black or white, or another category where everything is different shades of gray, right? And so for me, it's black and white. I can hear myself. If you ask me how I sound, I can't tell you. But if I was someone who had to minutely dig down and really think about it, I might come to the conclusion that I'm not hearing myself, because I'm not, but I am.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's a very tough one to nail down.
It is.
I've noticed that while talking to people, like the visualization thing is very simple. Yes, I can see it. No, I can't see it. But when it comes to the audible stuff, it's way more difficult to identify.
I think
in most
so.
cases.
I agree. That's puzzles me a lot. I mean, you're right. When I first learned that I couldn't visualize, it was so easy I got it. There's just like, got it. But if someone came up to me and said, oh, I can hear I don't even have to listen to the radio, because I just hear the band in my head, I would be really hard for me to grasp that.
When people say things like, I have a song stuck in my head, does that mean anything to you? Does that happen to you?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it does. I'll get a jingle stuck in my head.
So would you say you can hear that?
See, I have no idea. I guess I'm hearing the jingle. Otherwise, I'm thinking it. And sometimes I'll start singing it.
Okay. So when that is happening, whatever's happening, can you identify all of the things, the instruments, the vocals, all that? Is all of that there, or is it
just the vocals for me, basically?
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's very generalized, but it's usually that catchy phrase that I think of. But I know the tune.
Okay.
I'm not like, thinking about the symphony and all the music is really loud in my head.
Okay. One more question, then I'll get off of this. If I said to you, think of a phone ringing, could you hear that at all?
I'm imagining it in my hearing, in my brain, and what I'm hear a phone ringing. Kind of.
Okay.
It's kind of like I know what a chicken looks like, right? It's the same kind of concept. I know it, and I always think of the old-fashioned phone, the ring. So kind of, maybe, I don't know. I know what it sounds like. All
right. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Oh, I was going to ask you real quick too.
Sure.
So the other senses, you don't have any of those either smell, taste, or touch. Can you experience those at all in your mind?
Not really. I know people have said, oh, I'm craving a hamburger. But for me, craving the hamburger is more, I think my strongest sense is smell. It's there. Okay. Not strong, but it's there.
All right. That's interesting. I appreciate your patience on that, because I don't even know what I'm asking, to be honest. Like, I'm just trying to understand it, because I have zero on all of that. So I don't understand it, but I love to hear people's answers, to hear people try and explain what's happening in their mind.
Yeah,
right? Because
it's
such a crazy thing to talk about. And so I appreciate your answers there.
You bet.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit more about reading. When you're reading a novel, how well can you think about what the characters and surroundings might look like?
It doesn't ever really cross my mind. I'm just interested in the overall story. So it's like, like some people will say, oh gosh, I thought that he looked like Tom Cruise, or, I don't ever think about how they look like.
So you never have that. Do you ever have that moment of like the book was better than the movie?
Yes.
In that way?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it goes in, the book is more in depth, right? It's more entertaining.
What about audiobooks? Do you prefer those over other books?
I just really started listening to audiobooks about a year ago. I'd never heard one before, maybe, in class or something. But I am enjoying them because they really help me fall asleep. But yeah, I like audiobooks. I like them both. I think I like them equal.
So you mentioned audiobooks to fall asleep. So do you have a hard time falling asleep in general?
No, I don't have a hard time falling asleep when I go to bed. But when I have periods of extreme stress in my life, there's a lot going on. I'll have that waking up at 2:00 in the morning and I can't go back to sleep. And so that's when I'll listen to an audiobook. So I hear like 2 minutes of it because I fall asleep that fast. But I get up and I finish the book.
Okay.
And no, you don't remember it in your sleep. I thought I would recognize it all the first time, but I didn't. Just didn't hear it.
What about counting sheep? Have you ever tried that?
Oh my gosh, that one is prickly, let me tell you, because I tried to count sheep most of my life, and I am not kidding. And I thought you were just counting, 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep. I did not know that people were actually physically seeing these freaking sheep.
I love whenever we ask that question to people with aphantasia and they get so angry about it.
It's true. It's such a, big part of your life. You just, every time I've ever had a trouble falling asleep, I always tried that. I thought it was like 1/100, like when you're supposed to count seconds. I thought it was just 1 sheep.
1
2 sheep.
So if you want to recall a memory, how does it manifest in your mind? How do you think about that?
It's just there.
It's just there.
I honestly don't know. I think a lot of it is remembering the emotions I was feeling. I think that might be a best way to explain it. And it depends what it is. Like if I'm at the ocean, then I would, be thinking about hearing the ocean, smelling the ocean, but also how I felt at the ocean.
Does it almost feel as though you are experiencing or reliving the memory, or is it more from a third-person perspective?
Third-person perspective.
Okay.
How would you describe how your mind stores information?
I think that I have memories that I keep in a locked box. So basically, if I start to remember something I don't want to remember, I can literally tell myself, stop remembering it now. Like we're not going to go here today.
Okay. That's interesting. Can you describe that anymore? Is there any certain process you use to do that? Or is it kind of mysterious?
It's kind of mysterious. Okay. But someone brought back. Someone taught me to do that. You don't have, as a matter of fact, it was one of my therapists. It was like, she said, you don't have to think about everything. You can put some stuff away for another day. And so just imagine putting stuff away for another day. Locking the door.
Okay. So that's a conceptual thing that you do in your imagination.
I guess.
It's not a visual thing, but it is
conceptual. Yeah. Most of my stuff is conceptual.
Do you associate your mind with an area or a space?
Sometimes I find it amazing that we've got these calculators in our heads, right? It's like amazing that it's there.
What do you mean by that?
It's amazing that there's a lump of goo in my head that does all this.
Right. Okay.
Fair enough.
So are there any rooms or compartments in your mind? Is there any other space where you can put certain thoughts, or is it just the lockbox?
I guess there's thoughts that are just sitting on the shelf that I don't care if they ever get out. And then there's other thoughts that I like to take out more often.
Okay.
I guess mine's more of an open shelf for the rest of the thoughts.
Do you feel like you can search your mind?
When you're studying for a really heavy duty exam and you study and you study and you study and there's something that you're just not quite getting, it's just not clicking for you. I learned to walk away, stop, and go to sleep and have it come to me in my sleep. And I think that's so cool how that does that.
It what?
While I'm asleep, when I wake up, I know the answer. The answer is, I'm listening to the answer in my head. It's like, okay, what is the answer to this question? Maybe it's a tough question. I just can't answer it. And I'm just tired and I've worked on it and I don't want to, I just go to bed. And then as soon as I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing I think of and it's the answer.
Geez, Dad, you thought visualizing was cheating on tests. She's having her dream self do the work for her.
It's stuff that's already in your brain, but you're tired. So basically, in my mind, this is how I think about it. I think of my brain sorting stuff. I mean, literally, I think of someone taking and, doing whatever and like shuffling a deck of cards. So there's just so much stuff in there that it gets lost. And so I think when you've really struggled and you're trying to remember something that's just on the tip of your tongue, you know the answer, that if I know I will literally, it's called hitting the wall, just drop what I'm doing, go to bed, at bedtime, and your brain is continually sorting while you're sleeping. And that just comes out. That's how you remember it.
What would you say are some of the upsides of having aphantasia?
When something traumatic happens, you don't ever have to see it.
That's fair. That sounds nice.
That's probably the only upside.
Okay. So if you could wave a magic wand right now and get rid of your aphantasia, would you do it?
No.
Okay. Why not?
Because why would I, no. And I've thought about that too. And if you can talk to, there's many deaf people who will tell you the same thing. They don't want to hear. Even when they maybe get the cochlear implants, they'll take it out. It's too overwhelming. I think it would ruin me. I just can't even imagine laying there remembering my whole life. I would, oh my God, no. If I could pick and choose. Otherwise,
right, if you could have like control over it.
Yes.
Complete control.
Yes. Is that, you feel the same way?
Oh yeah, I would not do it. I'm with you. I wouldn't do it. That was the first thing that came to my mind too, is like, would I even be me anymore?
Yes, I absolutely, yes.
Right.
Because we've been thinking the way we think and doing the things that we do since birth. This is how we are. This is inherently who we are.
And, I've thought about it the opposite way. If I woke up tomorrow and had aphantasia, it would probably ruin my life. Because I don't know how to function without the visualization.
100% correct. That's true. I would not want to think a different way.
All right, Jan, that is pretty much it. Is there anything else you would like to say or talk about before we sign off?
It's kind of cool to talk about something like this because I can't, honestly, Shane and Cole, I can't sit and have a conversation with anyone else about this because they literally do not understand. And I think you understand a little bit more like my daughter does, but not the same as Shane understands what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't, people just kind of look at me with a puzzled look on their face, right? They're just like, what in the world is this woman talking about? Is she out of her mind?
And something we've heard a lot, and you've probably experienced this, is a lot of people don't even believe it.
No, I know. Well, again, thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the time you spent with me tonight.
Yeah, same here. We really appreciate your time, Jan, and your answers. We really enjoyed it, and have a fantastic evening.
You too. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.